So here I am with Charlie Wolfe, who is the author of this incredible book, The 1111 Code, The Great Awakening by the Numbers. And Charlie was really, he's been fantastic. This is the first time I've actually met Charlie, and he sent me the book and he actually wrote a little message to me in it. So I thought, you know what, why not read it? So I got this in the post recently and he popped a little message and it says...
Tell her where you're at, Natalia. Tell her where you live. Tell everybody where you live.
Oh, yeah, I will. Yeah, absolutely. I will in a moment. Okay, so it says, Dear fellow angel and light worker, the time has come for us to get ready for the show. It's one time to share now. Our time to share now. I hope you really enjoy this. Much love and light, the 1111 code. And here comes 25% of what's in my head right about now. And that shows me what I already knew, which is that there's so much more to you than just this book. So I look forward to what you have to bring in the future. So just to introduce myself first, I'm a psychic medium and energy healer from Melbourne, Australia. And I'm about to launch a course site on spiritual courses called Spiritual Academy. And Charlie Wolfe has just written this book, which is fantastic. And that's how we got to slowly know each other. So this is really a conversation between us about getting to know Charlie, you know, your background, who you are, and what got you to the point of writing a book, because you have a very interesting background, which we'll so get into. So why don't we start with your family, where you live. Just tell us a bit about yourself.
Well, hi, I'm Charlie Wolfe. Nice to virtually meet you all. And thanks for having me on, Natalia. It's really an honor and a privilege. So I apologize if I'm a little bit nervous. This is all new to me.
No, you're great. Mm-hmm.
I was born in Waukegan, Illinois, which is a kind of an industrial suburb of Chicago to the north. It's a beautiful little town right on the coast of Lake Michigan. Spent most of my early life in Waukegan, and we moved north to the next town north is Zion, Illinois. That's where I went through school and graduated. Then upon graduation in 1994, I went down to College of Lake County, Grace Lake, Illinois. Really, really great decision in my life was to spend the first 2 years at a community college and get some of the face time that I needed, because I always had a really hard time with mathematics. That was really, really a hard subject for me. So I was terrified at the prospect of going to a major university. Like I went to University of Illinois at Champaign-Urbana. I was terrified of having to cut my teeth on calculus and differential equations and linear algebra and complex analysis, all those courses that they plow you through at these big universities. I was able to get up to a good level of comfort at a small college. Like I said, then I went to, after getting my associate's degree, I went to University of Illinois at Champaign-Urbana and pursued my electrical engineering degree and got a minor in math. I spent the academic year of 1998/99 in University of Örebro, Sweden, on a study abroad program. So that allowed me to cram a 4-year degree into 5 years. And then I went to work for Siemens Westinghouse Power Corporation in 2000 upon graduation with my electrical engineering degree. And I became a field service representative for Siemens Westinghouse, working in the Latin America region. So any jobs that came up in Puerto Rico or Mexico or basically anywhere in Latin America or the Caribbean or South America, I would be sent to. So I worked for Siemens Westinghouse for a few years, and then I went to General Electric, worked for GE for 8 years. I've reported to bosses working in South Africa, Dubai, Istanbul, Turkey, and Glasgow, Scotland. I've worked all over GE. That's maybe the number 67 traveler, the 67th most traveled person in my age bracket in the United States, according to Most Traveled People website. So back to working for GE now after a few smaller jobs with some smaller companies. I'm back to work for General Electric, and I don't know, just I kind of work on nuclear plants for sort of a hobby, and right now I enjoy spending time with my family, making the best out of the whole COVID situation, and really trying to undo 24 years of just really tough living and being really short with my family. I've really finally got the time to get to the root of what's wrong with me and what's wrong with the world, and just try to make things better.
Wow, I'll interrupt you there.
It's a blessed time. It's a really blessed time to have with family.
Yeah, it's really true. Like, you're right at where so many people are right now. And this whole COVID thing has brought up this situation which has come up out of seemingly nowhere, and it's caught everyone by surprise. But what it's meant is that you can actually almost stop time, you know, and just deal with what you have to deal with, and have the time to peel back the layers and actually question a lot of things about one's personal life, your family dynamics, you know, a lot of things going on with that, as well as what is going on in the world, right?
Yeah.
And that's how your book kind of ties into everything, which, you know, I think is fascinating, and we'll explore that, you know, that further later. But also when you talk about traveling, there's so many interesting places that you've been to, Kazakhstan, Turkey, like I've read through your bio and so on. And I think that's really intriguing and interesting. And, you know, it's not everybody gets to have that kind of experience. And I think you come in as this worldly person, and you bring that through your writing as well. So you've talked a lot about the kind of jobs that you've done, companies you've worked for, which is quite impressive. Really, you're someone who's very much has a very strong science, math, physics background, you know, nuclear physics. I mean, that is extraordinary on its own. Absolutely. So in your younger years, what was it that got you on that road of being curious about the science, I guess you could say the hardcore sciences, or how the mechanisms of things work, or what was it for you?
You know, I was a quirky little kid. I had a fascination for electricity. Like, you know, it just amazes me to this day that you can plug a toaster in and heat comes out, and you can take the same plug a refrigerator or a freezer into the same plug and get something that can change the physical state of water from a gas to a liquid into a solid. I mean, the ability to do that is, to this day, blows my mind. And you can take a television set and plug it in, and it puts out sound and light about things that happen somewhere else at another time, or things that are happening right now at the speed of light somewhere else in the solar system as a lunar lander lands on the planet, you know, on the moon. It's like, thinking about this stuff, it's all a miracle. It's all a miracle how this all works.
Absolutely. It shows me that you have this great mind, and that from a young age you were really curious, and, you know, you're such an old soul in that way too. You sort of blend the sense of old soul with this sharp labyrinth of a mind where you think about so many things. And then in your later life, it seems that through your work you were able to discover things through your travels as well, giving you that sort of worldly perspective. And then coming now to this point where you're a family man, you know, wife, beautiful son, and 2 dogs. Is that right?
Yeah, Wolfe and Zeus. I got a Shih Tzu
absolutely.
and a what is he? Half Maltese, half Yorkie, a Morkie dog. Wolfe, our old, he's about 12. Yeah, and Zeus is our little gentle guy, our little Shih Tzu.
And it's fun. I'm not surprised that you've called your dog Zeus. I mean,
yeah.
So, you know, it's like, it just shows like what kind of mind you have. And
the reason we called Zeus is because I just finished a 1.6 gigawatt project, a new installation project down in Florida. We installed 6 new units that'll now power a city of 900,000 people. And when we finished that job, we celebrated and went out and got a puppy. But the night that we went and got Zeus, it was thunderstorm, and it was great God, the lightning.
God of thunder. Yeah,
I said, you know what, that little dog, that tiny little 3-pound dog that was so helpless. I said, let's give him a big diesel name. Let's call him Zeus, because it's the God of thunder. It's the God of electricity. After we just started that plant, and this beautiful little puppy just walked into our life, it's like that's Zeus.
That's, you know, perfect. That's
just
perfect.
A little dog.
I knew there'd be a story. I knew there'd be a story.
He farts rainbows. That little dog is the sweetest little thing.
Yeah. Oh, that's so awesome. Okay. So, you know, you have this really strong educational background where, I mean, I've read through your resume, and not only have you worked for these awesome, you know, well-known companies, you know, such as what you mentioned, but you also have a Bachelor of Science, Masters of Engineering Management, and you're currently completing another master's degree, so a Masters of Applied Physics. And I mean, that's...
Sorry, can you please repeat the last 10 seconds? I had a snag up on my signal.
Yeah, no worries. I was just talking about all your achievements education-wise, from your Bachelor of Science, your first master's degree, and now you're completing your second, which is really impressive. And, you know, it just shows the power of your mind. But what I find is very fascinating about you, which is also shown in your book, is that you have sort of bridged the two worlds. So you're coming from this very science mind, you know, hard, disciplined, logical, rational sort of background. And yet I think that with you, when you were younger, you were questioning things, but it wasn't like, oh, I'm interested, how does this work? And it's just that, and that's what it is in the 3D world. You were already, I feel, exploring these things because you're in touch with another reality, and that you on some level recognized that there's more to what things seem. And I think that has translated now into your later years, and you've sort of done your 360 loop. So you've gone from that childhood and gone through whatever pros and cons of life experiences to the work you've been doing and your education, and all of a sudden awakening and having these enlightened experiences, and this has somehow compelled you to write this book.
Well, there's a big missing piece to this that I want to share with you. I mean, you asked what really kicked this off, and I have to say probably the biggest influence is the fact that I grew up pretty much in the shadow of a coal power plant that was near the house, and we lived in a really cute little neighborhood in near downtown Waukegan, but it was close enough to the power plant that when they were dumping they take these big 110 ton rail cars of coal from that are shipped in from Powder River Basin in Wyoming. That's where, Montana or Wyoming, one of the two. Anyways, out west, I think it's Montana. And they've been pulling this ancient coal out of this stuff, 3.4 billion year old coal out of the ground out there for eons, for like 80 years. And they take these big 110, they turn them upside down, dump all the coal out, put them back, and then they send them down this ramp, kind of like a railroad coaster ramp. And then you could hear them clunking into other cars once in a while. They boom. And I'd ask mommy when I was 3 years, what's that noise, mommy? Oh, that's the power plant. And it's like, the power go out. That's the power plant. Everything in my life that was wrong was whenever the power plant wasn't doing what it was supposed to do. So as a kid, as a naturally curious kid, I asked my mom, take me to see the power plant. I want to see what it is. And it's all this tangled jungle of wires that I had to walk under and drive around as a kid. It's this alien technology, these 200-foot tall alien structures with 6 arms and these weird legs that, it just, to me as a kid, it's like I'd landed on an alien planet. And these people have these wires that carry stuff from these ugly places to these beautiful places. And it was some kind of weird magic to me. And it wasn't until 4th grade I got a tour of that plant. I was so curious to get in there that my mom was able to arrange a tour of that facility for me and 8 of my best friends. And that's where we proceeded to have my 4th birthday party. And that lit a fuse that has not been put out yet. It started something that became my today. And we had it to make it more interesting. There was a 2-unit 2,000 megawatt nuclear plant in Zion, 2 miles north. And that place, that was some alien technology up there. As I started to read up on the science of it as a kid, that place was as close to being on another planet as you could be. I got a tour of that facility in 4th grade as well. And that blew my mind that we were taking matter and destroying it, turning it into heat, turning it into electricity, sending it through wires at the speed of light into people's homes to make their TVs show them things that happen in other places. Come on. Yeah. This is some alien technology, and I needed to know exactly what that was all about.
Yeah,
I was satisfied, and I'm still not satisfied.
I absolutely
so here we are.
This curious mind since when you were a child, and you know, it just shows me, I really feel that you were in touch with other dimensions, and it's just for you, it was a matter of putting it all together, right? I really have just felt that. You have this extraordinary mind, and, you know, dare I say the mind of a genius, but, you know, whatever. It's like
just a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of hard work. I wasn't born smart.
Yeah, and when I think of that word genius, it makes me think of that word gene, and I think this is in your genes and your DNA. And this is what
I was given a good start. I was given a very good start, but a lot of it comes down to hard work. I mean, God gives you so much, and you got to take it the rest of the way. You can take it as far as you want. You're given a certain basic tools, and I got the advanced set of basic tools, but that's all they are unless you do more with it. You know, you get comfortable in life. You don't want to pursue a second degree. That's fine. You get a better family life that way. I sacrificed a lot of family life, any kind of free time I had, and did these punishing classes because I wanted to get 30 years worth of career done in 10 years and then unplug and just float. And that's kind of where I'm hoping I'm at now with this project, is to just kind of detach from the machine.
Yeah,
Because
I think you're in this transitional point between unplugging and floating, right?
I'm
You
very
know?
tired, Natalia. I'm very, very tired. I
Yeah.
love what I do, but it's very taxing on my family, and I've taken so much out of my family and out of myself, and I'm starting to feel the pains of aging, and I just feel like my soul's getting eaten up if I work too much. I want
I
to just
think
have
that,
the fact that I've
yeah.
had the last 6 weeks to get to know my family's names again. I didn't used to see them very much.
Yeah, I think that, deep within you are this family man, and it's just that, your pathway has taken you to these extraordinary heights where you've gone on that journey and now you're coming back again. And that's where it's coming back to the family and what's important, and then growing from there. And I love the way that you said a couple of things, that your spark was lit and it hasn't,
Yeah.
hasn't gone out of ignition. And I love that. I mean, that's an inspired person. And also when you mentioned a weird kind of magic of what you were noticing at the age of 3, I mean, that's incredible. It really shows me that you're kind of like a, not to put a label on things, but it's kind of how a mystic works, which is just somebody who's like in touch with the greater reality, and has this curious mind and that notices things. And I think, from what I've read, especially in your epilogue about your travels, and it seems to me that you're a person who, even though you're traveling for work, you really absorbed and observed, and you just have that sort of mystical mind of, liking noticing the culture and the idiosyncrasies, and I think that shows through your writing as well.
Well, it's a different situation. I mean, I hate to say average person versus not average person, but smart people don't go to the countries that I go to. I mean, the people, I always ask my mentors at these different companies, what's the best piece of advice you could give me? People that have done this for 40 years, what's the best piece of advice you could give me after what you've done? I love to hear what people say. And one of the most interesting answers I ever got was a guy named Charlie Stewart from Mississippi. He's been to like 130 countries. Like, he's ridiculously traveled. He just loves traveling. He loves the culture. He loves everything. And he said, the best advice I can give you is don't go to countries ending in Stan or IA. Steer clear of those. I
Okay.
said, okay, noted. And in my head, I said, that's exactly where I'm going. That's exactly where I'm going to go. I'm going to go the spreadsheet that's 18,000 lines long from my company, GE at the time. And it comes out every week and tells you every job on the planet that GE has open. And I would sort them by country. And I would go to the countries that had the roughest, toughest, scariest sounding names, like Nigeria, Chad, Algeria, Egypt, to this Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan. Let's rock and roll. Let's see what these places have. And I learned the most in those places. Those are the most fascinating and rewarding places, because you eat where they eat, you sleep where they sleep, you work where they work, you eat what they eat, you get haircuts at their barber shops. I mean, I spent 4.5 months in Ashgabat, Turkmenistan, 5 miles from the Iranian border, building a new power plant where, they had grade school students coming in with their teachers in flip-flops and shorts and t-shirts, while we're working up 50 feet up in the air installing gas turbines with arc welding and 480 volt circuits all over the place. They were picking up trash. The government was too cheap to pay to have people actually come in there. They took people out of school for the day and risked these children's lives while we were working on this industrial facility. And then meanwhile, they had Turkmenistan army conscripts planting trees at the site. It's a pure desert. It's arid, one of the most arid places on the planet, in the Karakum Desert of Central Asia. Those trees aren't going to thrive. It was the most bizarre place I've ever been.
You've really gotten to see realities beyond the realities that we know in the Western world. And I think that's a key, because we're so stuck in our programming here. We're so stuck in our ways, which is also in essence what COVID-19 is bringing about in people, this higher realization that, something's going on. There's something more. Like, you've really some interesting realities, and I'm sure that was so awakening for you. And it also shows me what I already knew, is that you're very much a humanitarian. You care about people. I know that you're a very generous soul. You're very humble, and you notice things. And you're just one of these people that have come onto Earth to do something of good. And I know that comes through in your book, because you haven't just written it. I mean, yes, it's largely based on your thoughts, your findings, your experiences, and putting it all together. But it also shows that you actually have a higher purpose and intention for what you want to bring forward. And I admire that. And I especially admire that you've written a book. I mean, because it's quite an accomplishment on its own, right? So
I
I think,
appreciate that. I appreciate that.
so I'd really like to talk about how you bridged science and spirituality, because it's such a big area, each on its own, and then to find a way to bridge it. How did that happen for you?
I'll tell you, it's a simple answer. It's a really awesome answer. You know, back in my undergraduate career when I was at the University of Illinois, Champaign-Urbana, going through electrical engineering, you know, I worked on my math minor. So every semester I had to look through the whole catalog at what different classes were available. And, you know, I don't know, I'm a glutton for punishment. So I like to find the classes that have the hardest, scariest names and then go take those classes and just see what's in them. Cause I don't know. I have no fear. I have no fear when it comes to that kind of stuff. I want to be punched in the face as hard as I can. I want to believe. I want to cry. I've had two math classes that made me cry. One of them occurred 2 years ago. I don't know, just the good that comes out of it is always so fascinating. It's always worth the burn. And it's like Easter eggs, like magic Easter eggs. Once you open them, it's way bigger than you could have imagined. But anyways, number theory was one of those classes that it seemed like, well, why the hell would you take that? It just looks big deal. It's stupid. Fractions, decimals, whatever. Complex numbers, great. What do you want to talk about? It's like, you take that. You can't build anything with it. You can't put a spaceship in orbit with it. I mean, you know, I don't know. Anyways, that's the one area of math that I'd never really studied. But once I started looking at numbers like, you know, like 11, like 111, for example, 111. Well, that's pretty cool. Lots of ones, right? But that's usually where it ends. But once you start to look into the prime factorizations of numbers like that, well, can you divide something into that? Yeah, you can. It breaks down the basic blocks of that number is 3 times 37. You can't go any lower than that. 3 and 37. So 3 all of a sudden becomes pretty interesting. The Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, the Holy Trinity. 3. It makes a triangle, makes a pyramid. That's pretty cool. But the number 37 is quite fascinating because that's a star number. If you're not familiar with it, Google it. Google 37 star number. Wikipedia will have an article on it, and it explains it in great detail. But think of it like a Chinese checkerboard. The commonly played Chinese checkerboard has 121 spots. The next possible Chinese checkerboard down would be 73 to maintain a 6-pointed star. And the next one down from 73 is 37. The next one is 13, which is featured on the back of the US $1 bill on the Great Seal of the United States of America. And the degenerate case is 1. So 1, 13, 37, 73, 121, and I don't know. They always involve 1s, 3s, and 7s in it, with the except. Yeah, that's far enough with that topic.
Well, I'll just put you there because it just shows me like how you were just like this encyclopedia of facts, right? But let's scale it back to a simple level, and we'll definitely be diving much more deeper into your book and other interviews.
Yeah.
And for now, let's just, let me introduce this whole notion of 1111, right? Or numbers, ones, whatever. It's just that in the last decade or so, people have started to notice numbers and or the repetition of numbers, number patterns, whether it's on the clock or on signs, number plates, all sorts of places. And all of a sudden, one of these numbers that's been showing, in fact, the most powerful one, that's probably the most one that's left an imprint on people, is 1111. And, you know, hence the title of your book. So, you know, and people who are spiritually awakening especially have been seeing these numbers. I know I started seeing them roughly a decade ago, and it's like 1111, wherever you go, 1111, and then all of a sudden you look on the oven clock or on TV and there are the numbers, right? And, you know, there's no way to explain it. You just know and feel this is synchronicity and divine action. And then even people who are otherwise not that spiritually inclined are starting to see the numbers. In fact, even today, and children, you know, like even today, I told my kids, you know, oh, I'm interviewing Charlie Wolfe, the 1111 guy, at 12 o'clock. And my daughter said straight away, why didn't you choose 1111 as the time? So I was like, oh yeah, that's
fair question.
Yeah.
It's a fair question. It's past my beauty sleep bedtime, but
yeah. I love that.
Somewhere,
so,
right?
Why don't you, so I've given a basic introduction. I just call it the 1111 phenomenon, you know.
Okay.
Why don't you tell people in basic terms, very basic layman's terms, what do you think this number means and why are people seeing it and your journey with it?
You know, I guess I can get down to the basic, the punchline of it. I'll go straight to the punchline. The 1111, through the book using scientific principles and backed up with 737 sources, I basically distilled it down to it starts with atomic reactions. If you take Einstein's equation, E equals mc squared. It's the most famous equation in the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
That says the amount of energy you get, E, equals the amount of mass m that you destroy times the speed of light squared. As it turns out, if you take the speed of light in meters per second, the formula for deriving it, 1 divided by epsilon times mu, the electric property times the magnetic property of free space. You can look those up. It's in appendix 4, appendix 3 and appendix 4 of the book. I explain it, but I prove that 1111 is embedded in the speed of light using physics, using electromagnetic principles, beginning with Maxwell's equations, the fundamental laws of electromagnetics. So from that, we take it from the atomic state into the electrical state. Once it gets to the electrical state, that energy travels at the speed of light. If you take 1111 in terms of 11 hours, 11 minutes, 11 hours works out to 660 minutes. 11 times 60 is 660 minutes, plus 11 is 671 minutes. So if you think about 671, it's not a common number. It's not 1, 2, 3, 11, 22. It's not a so-called cute number that everybody's talking about. It's not 1111. 671 is an interesting number, though, because it's the speed of light in millions of miles per hour. And that's the key linchpin of the book. That's the crux of it. I think I kind of blew the punch for you, but it's valuable enough because there's so much development that goes behind what that brings with it. I go into the development of how the 1111, if you take the number 22 and realize that's the same as 11 plus 11, and then look for things that have 22 as being equally significant with 1111, that vastly opens your universe of things that you can associate with this 1111 phenomenon of light. And things like 33, that's 11 plus 11 plus 11. Things like JFK. Well, why did JFK get shot on 11/22 of 1963 at the 33rd parallel in Dallas, Texas? What's going on there? Is it some kind of a cosmic coincidence? No, I don't know. I think that I've got enough evidence here, enough data, enough proven data, enough actual picture evidence and data that it would withstand statistical. It's statistically significant at this point.
You just really like. I just got
significant.
shivers. Yeah.
It's statistically significant, and that's it.
I just got shivers when you mentioned, the assassination on that date. I mean, I've heard all that before,
yeah.
But separately. But I, got shivers. It's absolutely, there's something in this, and
there's page after page of stuff like that. I mean, we could talk about Apple computer. I mean, we could talk about, why did the first Apple computer sell for $666.66 on, April 11th of 1976, which is the exact birthday of my first girlfriend. I mean, what's up? The message there. It's an apple with a bite missing. There's an Eden reference there, right?
I just thought of it at the same time you mentioned it.
It's an Adam and Eve reference there, and it's such a crazy metaphor for me.
The apple, right? That's been bitten. And it's been bitten. Literally, that's the sign. The bitten apple.
But watch up. Let's go deeper with that. And I'm spoiling another page of the book, but just to give you a prime apple from this tree that I've written is, think about what does it mean? Like in the Bible, in the fall of man in Genesis, it talks about the fall of man because Eve tempted Adam to eat from the tree of knowledge. She ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil and said that it was good, and then told Adam to eat. So Adam ate from the tree of life, from the tree of good and evil. Then they both sinned because they were commanded not to go there. But I think that's a much deeper metaphor than an actual apple tree made of wood and apple. I think it's a deeper metaphor for everybody that has participated in electrical communication by way of the telephone, by way of particularly the internet. Everybody, I don't think there's anybody on this planet that can honestly say that they haven't gone to a pornography website. I think that this electrical tree that we enjoy, which is the internet, it's an interconnected web of nodes and connections. It's a tree. It has nodes. It has trees. It has branches. It has fruit. It has nodes at the end that you can liken to cherries. That's you and me. As we plug into that network, we all eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Every time we get into our iPhone and look at something, good or bad, you can look at anything you want on your phone, good or evil, and you can look at anything you want on this planet. It's a choice. You know what I mean? So when I look at the back of my iPhone, I see why there's a bite missing, because we've all taken a bite. We've all taken a bite. It's a deeper metaphor, and the Bible is deep and cool like that. And I go,
Wow. Yeah, absolutely. As you were speaking,
because the Bible's that deep.
I was thinking about that tree, the concept of the tree of knowledge and good and bad. And you're really onto something there. And also from what we know about numerology and things like that, I know that you get really into numerology in your book and sacred geometry and all that stuff. But it is interesting, the tree of good and bad. There's the tree of good, where all these people are seeing these numbers and all these things are happening, and you're sort of piecing together that. Then we have the other side, where there are people in, and we'll just talk about very briefly, people in positions of power or secret societies that use numbers for nefarious reasons. You know,
Right.
and I'll just mention it now. So you did mention the number 33, for example, which is, you know, known to be Freemasons use this number, for example, for, you know, on some level, some who are in the higher sort of echelon of that, for negative purposes. So at the end of the day, we're on this earth and there is the good and the bad. And it's where we're at. So in some way, your breakthrough of really digging deep into these numbers is revealing not only sort of these concepts of enlightenment and God's fingerprint on life, but also, and that sense of magic, there's also that sense of the other side of the coin as well, which is fascinating.
It's been an adventure. I mean, this whole thing started out as writing a math book to explain engineering math to engineering students, and just I wasn't expecting to like make it a blockbuster or anything. I was just doing it after I gave a talk at a college that I went to, College of Lake County, and you know, just kind of I really thought about it. And I thought about all the stuff that I wish I would have said better, or things that I would have said differently, or things that I would have added. You know, and I just started making that into notes in this book, and it swelled into this, and like 1111 was just going to be like one quick little one-page deal. I mean, I didn't know much about it. I just figured, well, you know, it was pretty cool. It happened, and you know, but it's like I developed this little tumor that grew and grew and grew to where it got to be more important than saving the body. It's like, well, just keep the tumor and cut the body off, cut the math book part out of it, and work with the 1111 thing, because it took on a mind of its own. It took on an intelligence of its own. These are gifts that were given to me. I'm just the messenger here. I'm just the scribe. There's no way I could have come up with this on my own. Absolutely impossible. I'm not that smart. I had to ask the questions. I got the answers and I just wrote them down.
Well, I'll correct you. You are smart. And, you know, as you're speaking just now, like the last, you know, 10 seconds, I just feel the energy of it. And that's what 1111 brings. It really is like a doorway that opens. And then you have your, you know, entering this higher state of consciousness, which is how a lot of the more spiritually oriented people experience it. And it takes you places and you begin to see the world in a more, you know, with another eye, and not the eye that we're trained to see the world in through the programs of society, education, and everything that, you know, we've thought the world was constructed by, because you've actually unearthed that there's a sense of God's fingerprint in things, which I find is fascinating.
Yeah.
And, you know, and for those of you who are interested in this book, it really expands upon that notion, and that's what everything's about. So that old question that people like you and I have asked from different perspectives, have asked ourselves as children, like, what's the meaning of life? You know, who created this? Who's got what? What is God, and all of that? You know, your book really sort of expounds upon those ideas, and I think that it's perfectly come into being because you followed your calling, you know, and that it's like these divine downloads that have come, and you with your nuclear physicist background and like your mind is just this crazy labyrinth of information circling around, that you've tried to connect the dots, right? And you know, and so much more is yet to come. But I'm curious, when you talk about the speed of light, can you explain in very basic terms what the speed of light is, and how you, apart from the numerical side of it, how that connects to 1111?
Well, it's helpful to look up to understand how light is, how electromagnetic energy propagates. It's really fascinating. It can be as simple as you taking a magnet and giving it a twirl. Now that just created a north north-going pulse and a south-going pulse in one revolution. So associated with that spin is going to be a current. A current's going to be induced. This means a changing magnetic field causes a changing electrical field perpendicular to it. All right. Then now that you got this secondary electrical field changing, now you're going to induce another magnetic field, and it's this chain effect. It's like throwing a pebble into the center of a pool and watching the oscillations work their way outward. It's the same way. It's the same way with electromagnetic waves. But you've got this chicken versus egg, where you've got both. It's born with both the chicken and the egg. They both are born simultaneously, but then they become entangled in this dance that happens at the speed of light. This transformation of energy from the electrical state, which is like a potential energy state, like a spring that's been pulled, and then when the spring lets go, you've got motion. Now that's the magnetic energy. That's the kinetic energy as the current flows. So you've got this current flow, and then the magnetic field changing that makes another current flow, another magnetic field. It's this chain that goes infinitely fast at the speed of light that propagates out everywhere in space. That's the best I can tell you without getting into Maxwell's equations.
Yeah, so you're coming from a very obviously scientific frame of mind when you talk about the speed of light. And my interpretation from my end is I think of it as light, energy, speed, acceleration, and it's kind of a metaphor for what's happening on Earth with this feeling of awakening. And that's, you know, it's in your title, The Great Awakening. It's all connected.
Yeah.
This is not a book just about science. There's so much more to it. And then when you talk about the North Pole versus South Pole, and the polarity notion, it makes me think of a battery with the plus and the minus, and duality.
Yeah.
The yin and the yang. And then that goes back to the apple that we talked about before, and it all interconnects, the good and the bad. And we're on this earth of these two things happening. And that's why I think that your book is fascinating also, and that you describe the, you know, atoms and, you know, really go into that sort of detail. And from my perspective, you know, even when I do energy healing work, sometimes I like to work sometimes for the people that need it on a DNA level and go right down to that subatomical sort of level, the molecular system of the person's body. How do you interpret that in your way?
So what's the question? I want to make sure I'm answering.
I mean, I'm basically saying, so from what you say, like as someone, the typical layperson will only understand science to a certain point, whereas you're really advanced in your knowledge. So even when you explain things, you know, it's quite advanced. And from my position, I'm coming from that energy healing, and I'm feeling into your words and the intuition of things. And I'm kind of bridging what you say through the scientific processes that you explain. I can feel the sort of energetic spiritual links to certain things as well. And so I'm wondering, for example, when you wrote the book and when you were going through things like what, you know, something you found that connects 1111 scientifically to something spiritual, can you give an example where it sort of interconnects, or where you feel the spiritual or the energetic in the science of it?
Well, I'll give you a perfect example. So here's okay, a little bit of background. This is the coolest synchronicity that has ever happened to me. I released this book, The 1111 Code, on March 22nd of 2020, right? Mm-hmm. It was my last day working at an atomic power plant called Arkansas Nuclear 1 in Russellville, Arkansas. I just finished doing a hit skid test on a stator there, a unit 2, 900 million watt unit. And I just finished up there. It was an 11-day job. And you show up when the nuclear plant tells you to show up, that's when you show up. And when they tell you you're done, that's when you're done. I have no choice whatsoever in terms of what day I come and what days I go. Well, they told me to be there on the 11th, to check in on March 11th. That's cool. And then they told me I was done on March 22nd, which was my 45th birthday. So that's 11 days, starting on the 11th, ending on the 22nd. And then when I checked out the next morning, mind you, the 22nd is the day that I released the book. That's when I released the book to publishing. Right. Now, the next morning, the 23rd, when I checked out, here's the receipt that I got. Look at the 1111s in here, in the reference numbers for the checkout. Can you guys see that?
That's good. Yeah, that's more focused. Absolutely. Now, I've seen this, like Charlie has emailed this to me, and it's just got riddled with all these.
It's just unbelievable.
These ones, like codes. And for you, is there a connection between computer codes and binary codes and your theories?
There is, but let me tell you what my epiphany was with this.
Yeah.
So about it, I'm checking out of the Hampton Inn in Russellville, Arkansas, and I just got done with a 22,000 volt stator. This thing puts out 22,000 volts. That's 11 plus 11,000 volts out to the United States 500,000 volt power grid. Those great big towers that the wires like 50 feet apart, 200 feet up in the air. The big wires. This is feeding into the backbone of the United States, critical infrastructure. I go to check out the hotel the next morning. This stranger hands me this receipt, says, "Thank you, Mr. Wolfe. I hope you had a nice stay here at the Russellville Hampton Inn, and we'll hope to see you again, sir." And it's got these check-in codes from heaven, as far as I'm concerned. 11, 11, 111, 26 lines of it on my birthday, the morning after I launched this book. If that's not a check-in stamp from heaven that your book's been received, I don't know what is. Because those were random computer-generated codes run by a machine that I just worked on 5 miles down the road that operates at 11 plus 11,000 volts. Don't you think for a second God doesn't know the name, rank, and serial number of every single electron and every inch of the wires between that power station and where I was standing at that printer? And God told every single one of those electrons which order to jump through the processor logic within the computer that came up with that random number. And look at that, 1111 right there, random.
Yeah, 11,
Every time
11.
somebody's quoting, they give you 1111. How many times have you seen 11?
Wow. Amazing.
I just came up with that. It just hit me. People have been doing 1111 forever. Think about it.
They
When
have.
when you're just talking, like it's not serious, quote, right?
Mm-hmm. I got goosebumps as you were speaking before, completely.
It's just a fun thing to dig into because it's
Mm-hmm.
just so.
Because why are they going like this or like this? It's like this, isn't it?
Or like Mr. Spock, Spock, Star Trek, right? Like, isn't that 1111?
Yeah. And also, you know what I just thought is that the peace sign doubled.
Yeah, exactly.
2 + 2, 22.
Exactly.
I mean, you go on and on and on with this.
We've been doing this. We've been doing this instinctively. We've been using this awakening and peace and happiness. Peace, right? I mean, think about it. That just hit me. That just hit us. We group thought this. It's so awesome. I love this.
It's a think tank right here.
I love it. This is the energy of 1111. This is the synchronicity. We're synchronized. I'm in North America in Chicago. You're down in Melbourne, Australia. We just group thought this thing. It's so amazing. That's what I love about talking to people like you.
Absolutely. And you know what's funny? Because last night I was trying to go to bed and I thought, I'm just going to pop you an email about today. And what time, and when the thought hit my head and I went to do the email on my phone, what was the time? 11:22, of course. You know, and these things have happened between us so much, and then we've all got our own individual stories.
It's comical.
Yeah.
It's more surprising when something isn't a synchronicity at this point. It's like, you don't even have to make it up. Like,
and do you agree that the more that you step into it and notice it, the more it expands and the more it happens?
Oh yeah. Listen, I talked to a QHHT practitioner for an hour and a half this week. I'm going to go visit. I'm going to get my first QHHT, quantum healing.
I'm not surprised. This entered my head this morning, so I'm not surprised.
Yeah, quantum healing, whatever, QHHT, Google it, don't care.
Hypnosis techniques, yeah.
Right, yeah. So she told me during the interview, she said, one of the best things I can tell you to train your spiritual antenna is to recite yourself, make a mantra out of saying to yourself in the mirror, anytime you got free time to just train your brain, like you would, instead of kind of like train your brain, is to say, I have a clear and direct communication to my higher self. Keep repeating that. I have a clear and direct communication to my higher self. And I've just been putting that on blast. I've probably said it 78 times today. And so much cool stuff has happened to me. It ties you into the higher mind. I have a clear and direct communication with my higher self. Simple as that. And it's amazing what it's done to my ability to think and ask for things and get things.
Absolutely. And
somebody that nearly, this woman that taught me this, she nearly died. She spent 20 hours on the other side after a severe car accident. So she's been on God's right knee and given a choice to go rematerialize or stay there. This woman, other side, paranormal type stuff.
There's something to be said for near-death experience. Absolutely. We can go in that another time. When you talked about the higher mind, you know what came into my mind is the hive mind, because you get out of the hive mind of that mentality of like ants marching along or bees following, and the higher mind, because otherwise in this world, and people like us who have been sort of awakening and have seen these things from a young age, and we haven't necessarily put together the pieces until recent times more, all around us we see the ants marching along, or the bees, all in this, you know, following that hive mind mentality. And
Group
your
think.
concepts break free from that, but you need to be someone who's open to get to that point.
Right.
So with you as well, I just wanted to ask, when you talk about God and you talk about computers and computer codes, just briefly we were talking about before, do you think there's any link between God and machines, or do you think that the machines are just a construction that have been on some level divinely inspired with codes and whatever you want to say with your science talk in them, atoms, or it's like the DNA of machinery is an analogy to our human DNA. Does that make sense in some way?
Yeah, I think I know how I want to bite this apple. Could you phrase your question one more time? I want to make sure I hit it right. What's your question?
Yeah.
Oh, I know.
Okay, I'll break it down really simply to,
I know how I want to answer it. Yeah.
Yeah, do you believe there's a link between God and machines, or how do you see God operating within machinery, computers, etc.?
I think I've come to the conclusion, like, why is there accidentally oil in the ground? Why is there accidentally uranium here? Why is there accidentally leftover energy from our star that for here to just magically find and discover it and make atomic power from? I mean, I don't think it's your chance. I don't think the fact that we have coal from 300 million years ago stuck under entire continental shelves, entire formations of mountains on top of coal. I don't think that was there by accident for us to not use and innovate with. I think that industry and all of our technological developments, I don't think that they're an affront to nature. I think they're more of an expression of nature. I mean, as much as we come from nature, I think that all of our ideas that come from nature, it's kind of like an entire forest comes from one acorn, and it's like the entire mind of mankind started out from that same kind of an acorn and spread and became Rome and become Constantinople and all these different kingdoms, but they all came from the same original acorn of human, from the first two humans. So it was all contained in the original acorn, the original
Seed
true
of
seed.
knowledge. Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Does it make sense?
Yeah,
So
no, it does.
I think that machinery is an expression of the divine mind, but I do think that it has taken man's soul to the point that the machines are starting to control us. The artificial intelligence, we're getting computer systems that take a flash picture of your car and send you a picture in the mail, and you have to pay that camera $200. I mean, it's ridiculous. We have no freedom because of technology. We have no privacy because of technology.
And you really hit on something we've been talking about. In that way, it's God versus machine in terms of the AI, in terms of good versus evil, right? Because there's divine, God working divinely through the divine mind through machinery, and then you have the negative side of it.
It's an interesting thing to think about. I think atomic power is a really interesting place to pause and give an example of atomic power causes a lot of problems, but it also air conditions a lot of homes. It also keeps a lot of hospitals lit up. It lights up. It charges a lot of cell phones. It plays a lot of video games. It does a lot of elevators up buildings. I mean, atomic power does a lot of great things, but people don't realize when that uranium deposit was in the Earth's core, it didn't have anything good or anything bad. It was all just one. It was fat, dumb, and happy. It's when you started to separate it, when you broke it, you got the good part out, but now you're left with the bad part. You don't get anything for free in this world. Atomic power is not free. Energy is not free, except for wind power and solar, but anything that a thermal power source is not free. Something has to be destroyed. You're building a log cabin. Somebody's forest is getting cut down. You can't just you can't just find the wood. You have to cut something. Something has to die. So there's a reciprocity. There's nothing new in the universe. You're taking something from here and putting it over here. There's nothing free. You create beauty here and create ugliness over here. It's reciprocity, and that goes down. It goes down to the microscopic level and to the mathematical level at the number theory. You could go into it without end.
So in your science terms, you can explain, which in spiritual terms, as an energy healer, I know that energy, like for example, if I was to clear somebody of some negative energy, I know that I'm not just that's it, that energy's gone, it will transmute into something else. So I can literally take away their negative energy and transmute it into, take it back to God or transmute it to positive energy. You know, like that's how things
Signal.
operate. Yeah, that will happen
My
momentarily.
signal hung up. I apologize. The last 10 seconds, my signal was hung up.
All good, all good. You just froze for a moment. So did you capture what I said? Yeah, so it's kind of just like putting in spiritual terms what you're saying scientifically. It's all just fascinating, because I think that people who will be drawn to your book will come from different sort of backgrounds. And so you'll get the people that have been seeing 1111 who are curious as to what, you know, how have you broken this code? Like, what are you coming up with here scientifically? Because, you know, you prove your theories with fact. And then you get the science community coming in, and then the interesting ones are the ones who are coming from both perspectives or that are open from both sides. Who do you see your audience as being, just out of curiosity? All of the above? Something else?
You know, the people I really, I mean, there's a lot of college kids running around. You're talking about 1111 because it's cool and stuff, but I don't think they're really. I don't know how much they're into that. It's not for me to judge, but I think there's a level of seriousness that's missing from some of the people I'm getting on Instagram. But there's on Twitter people that you can tell have been really cracking into this for a long time. And I go on some of the internet forums and I sign in. I sign in as a login username. It's 1111 or whatever. I pick a cute little login name, and you know, I go and see what kind of questions people are asking. Then I have something that I copy and paste, drag and drop in there, and just start conversations like Graham Hancock's website, the famous British author. He's got a Book of the Year club, or Book of the Month award club, that you go in there and you talk about your book and see what people say. And the moderators, if they like you, the discussion that you've stirred up, then maybe they'll feature you as the Book of the Month. So I'm just there talking and having a good time, you know?
It's interesting that you mentioned these like teenagers, because for me, it's like pop culture. On some level, they're curious, and it reminds me of my kids a bit too, especially my daughter who's a bit older. They have this, and I was the same, this natural curiosity towards interesting things. So when I was younger, for example, I was interested, about whatever it might be, and we were limited what was on TV in those days. So, you know, about aliens or crop circles or, you know, paranormal stuff. And my daughter's like that. She's really interested. But, you know, they also are very aware of these numbers. And I know obviously through me, because I'm always saying, 1111, 444.
Yeah.
And like to the point that my son's sports jumper says 44, and my kids are always saying it. And then my husband, who constantly starts seeing it. And before you know it, we're sitting in front of the TV, everything's just frozen, and there's a series of ones all over the TV. And I go, see, you know, like,
it's so awesome.
Yeah. And so, you know, when we talk about the teens and the pop culture, I see them watching these sort of YouTube videos with, you know, conspiracy dudes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it is what it is, because when we're teenagers, we're into that pop culture thing and so on. And it's just where they're at. But there's a level of fakeness or shallowness. And I think that obviously children as teenagers, they can only go so far as they can. But they're still really influenced by peer pressure and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
How do you think that we can bridge our children, you having a younger son yourself, from that shallow and materialistic side of things, even if they are exploring these concepts, to a deeper level to help them along? Or what
you know, okay,
that's it.
Okay, my 8-year-old son Eric, the kid on the front of the book, you know, he's very empathic.
This is your son?
That's my son Eric.
I wasn't sure 100%. Oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah, he's a great kid. I love that kid. Yeah.
Case in point, right there. You know? Yeah.
But you know, what were we talking about?
Just like the teenagers and how we can take them to a deeper level.
Yeah. So Eric at age 8, he already gets it. Like when we're talking about, it's always when we're talking about something really big, like something spiritual, something about, you know, I'm really happy with how you're doing your math. I can tell you're writing, you're writing better, and you know you're writing neater, and you're spelling better. I can tell your art's getting better. You're just being more respectful to mom, and I'm really proud of you, man. And then zoom, we'll be driving in the car. Car will pass me. There'll be 722 in the license plate. Like, Eric, did you just see it? Yep, I saw it. next one will be 622, and it'll be YES 622. Yes was one of the license plates, and it'll whiz by. Dude, did you just see that? And
Yeah.
we just have this high five moment, like, dude, you get this. You're 8 years old. You get what this didn't hit me till I was like 42. You're seeing what I'm seeing. It's like you get to climb. You get to start your life right here. What's taken me my entire life to get up here. He's already seeing like he's getting what we're putting down. He's seen these 1111s. He's seen the pictures of the undeniableness of it. He gets the 322 hole court. My first house was 322 hole court address. I was born 322. I mean, he gets it that as look at here's the sun, and here Earth has its orbit, and then outside of us, Mars has its slower orbit. So there's going to be times during the orbits where as Earth goes busily around the sun, Mars is kind of here cruising, but there's going to be times when they're as close as they're ever going to be. Then there's times when they're as far as they're going to be, and the sun's between them, right? Well, as it turns out, the speed of light to travel from Earth to send an electromagnetic signal, whether it's a microwave signal, a radar signal, a light signal, infrared, UV, laser, anything you want. If it's a radio signal, if it's electromagnetic energy of any sort, it will take 3 minutes at the shortest. At the shortest approach, it takes 3 minutes to get electromagnetic energy between Earth and Mars. If you've got a rover up there, it's a 3-second delay. That's the minimum you'll ever get. It doesn't get any better than that. Now, if the sun's between you and you're at opposition, you're as far apart as you're ever going to be, it takes 22 minutes. That's as long as it's ever going to be for Mars and Earth communications. 322. My birthday was March. The month of Mars, 322. There's a deeper message there, and I don't quite know what it is, and that's part of why I'm going for my QT session. I want to know if there's some previous life regression, some previous life that I'm unaware of, and they claim that they can tell you with absolute reliability what it is if you submit yourself to their techniques. So I'm really excited.
That's amazing, and I look forward to hearing about that. And you're really onto something there. I mean, we know that 3 + 2 + 2 = 7. And then 7, is that magical number that they talk about, like God's number, the 7 steps to heaven, and the 7 wonders of the world and all of that. And it's interesting. And I also know, without, again, getting into the negative side, but just because there is that contrast and it's come up. So 322, I mean, I know that the negative elite use that number for negative purposes.
Skull and bones.
So, and why is that? Because, and here you are knowing there's something about it. I haven't got my finger on it 100%. And that's all it is. It's this seed of knowing that there's something more, and sometimes, and the answers can come, and sometimes we just got to be patient and allow them to manifest. And sometimes there's a message within a message within a message, and I'm sure that something more will come from that. But it's by no mistake that you've discovered this number, and then there's people using that number in negative ways. There's something in that.
Let me say something about that. I mean, if you look at what the evil people that have been running this planet since the pharaohs, since like 6,000 years ago, Babylon, we've been under the same. It's just the same boss. Meet the new boss, same as the old boss. I mean, it's the same power structure, the same ancient alien power structure that's been in control of this rock. That they've just changed faces. I mean, think about it. Nazi Germany was at one point the Holy Roman Empire. I mean, think about that.
Mm-hmm.
Connection and Nazi Germany. It's really remarkable what's coming out in the news or through QAnon right now, which is a whole subtopic. But there's just so much to think about right now.
No, absolutely. Like, I think that's why coming up at this time, we're at a boiling point, and there's so many things going on. So many people that you and I, we've been sort of conscious of these things for some time, and then there's some people who are just recently starting to awaken on some level. And for me, I see awakening on sort of 2 spectrums of it. One is about the world we're in and how we've been lied to and how we're in a system, and the other is the spiritual awakening. But it's all kind of connected, right? But some people are only on one side or the other, and some both, which we can relate to. So and you did talk about the Great Awakening in your book, and this is really happening. So what is awakening to you?
It was a really tough book to write. I mean, it really sucks to be 2.5 years ahead of the rest of the world, because I've studied every posting on Q. I mean, I've essentially been privy to the future for the last 2.5 years. Now I'm watching everything I've written about unfold. And it's like the exact week that I submitted my book is exactly when all this COVID lockdown stuff started. So it's like I launched this book and then boom, everybody, my entire audience is locked down and has to sit home. It's like, it's so bizarre to me, the timing. Like my grandfather, 93 years old, said he's never seen anything like this in his entire life. Nothing even close.
Yeah,
Stop.
amazing. At that
I mean, it's
age, he
going to
would have
snow
gone
here.
through so many sort of decades of change in the world and wars. And, you know, I've been thinking recently, this is like a war on the people, and in a very strange and different way. And so that's what's interesting. And some people think like, what is this? Like, where does this come from? And they're in fear. But hang on a minute. Every century there has been some kind of war, trouble, you know, of all sorts of proportions. Why are you surprised that we're not in something now? And, you know, it's shaken us from our safety to our sort of pretend worlds, especially people who are very robotic and just going to work every day, whether they realize or don't realize. And some people really are authentic people trapped in that. And, you know, there's so many more truths beyond it. So the current state of the world is really a chance for people to wake up on many levels.
Yeah.
Do you see it that way?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, I think it's an interesting time because, you know, right now I'm at the prospect of, you know, I mean, I'm going to keep paying my bills, but let's suppose I didn't pay for my house. What are they really going to do? What are they really? The banks are all closed. I mean, what if I don't pay my mortgage? What if I stop having to pay my mortgage? What if Trump does away with money? What if they get rid of money altogether? What if they get rid of interest altogether and you just own your house? I mean, do I need to keep going? Do I have to keep going to that job to pay for that bank? Or does this become irrelevant? Does money just become simply irrelevant and we barter skill for skill?
Yeah, to me, money is irrelevant.
I'm envisioning a world where money isn't a thing, you know?
Yeah, that's the problem.
Work is a thing. Hard work is the commodity. You know, where you want to spend $50,000 worth of wood and get $50,000 worth of labor to pay somebody to help build $100,000 house. Well, you can spend $100,000 and have $100,000 worth of house. You're not going to have to pay taxes to pay that guy. Let him keep all of his pay. Let him go take the $50,000 you paid him, and put that toward his next $100,000 house, and go build another one with him. He just paid off 2 houses by building a couple. You know what I'm saying? Let people have money. Quit taxing them. Quit taxing every time we spend. Quit taxing us every time we make money. Quit taxing us every time we die. I think that's what's going away. We're going to see that stuff go away. Those forms of slavery that prevent us from getting better and richer as a species with time.
I mean, do you think slavery started?
Families don't get richer, huh?
Yeah. So sorry to interrupt. Do you think slavery started from the bite of the apple?
You know, it's hard to say because I mean, you know what? When I in my teenage years, when I started to make bad decisions, it's like, who knows? Would I have not made those decisions had I not bitten the figurative apple? Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? We're all here for sort of learning experience and growth and all that kind of thing. And I think that people have been getting it, but only to a point because they've been trapped. And you could have someone who really wants to be able to, for example, explore conspiracy theory or the meaning of the world, or have time to just read a book, you know, and so now they're forced into it. And I think that's a good thing, despite obviously all the bad things. And you know, this is a chance for people to take a breath and to wake up. And
tell me about it.
On a higher perspective, despite all the negative stuff, it's almost like a God's gift for people to go, I'm granting you time, because time has been something that everyone's rectify. Here it is.
That's what it is.
You've been begging for it. How many people walk around, I haven't got time, I'm so busy, and they're like walking along like rats in the city, and it's like running around with their children and work and trying to fit everything in and schedules. But it's like, no, relax all that, because once you take that carpet under them, they're like, whoa, I feel vulnerable. But hang on, you need to feel vulnerable. You need to go to your lowest depths. You need to have that dark night of your soul before you can rebirth, because it's about realizing and waking up. And I think that's the key. That's the gift right now. And we're all going through it. You know, no one's better than anyone else. We've all got our versions. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a tough week. I mean, I think everybody's kind of at their fever pitch here. People want to get out and live their lives. It's summertime and we can't have summer. I mean, I can't hug any of the people that I love. I mean, come on, this is ridiculous. You know, come on. Enough's
Absolutely.
enough. I can't wait for this thing to be over so people can have their lives again. I mean,
But
I'm
here's
glad.
the key with that. You know what I think? So many people say, I can't wait till it's back to normal, back to normal. But do you really want to go back to that same normal on that treadmill? Or is there a new normal? You know, there's this new phrase, the new normal. And I think
Yeah,
that's sort of been painted in. However, I think there's a new normal beyond that, which is this is where change is going to be implemented, where people who are awakening or sort of getting more in touch with their divine gifts and the humanitarianness
yeah,
opening up and doing real things in the world. And that's perhaps where
yeah,
that money system will start to break down and change,
yeah. I'm
and we
hopeful. I'm
pray for,
hopeful.
yeah.
I'm hopeful.
Um, so, all this is going on, and, 11/11, it's all tied in, it's all tied in one way or another.
Of course it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is by no mistake why your book has just come out recently and on Amazon,
Yeah,
which is fantastic. So
it's been a lot of fun.
let's talk about your book writing process now, because share with us, how did the book come to be? Do you remember the first moment you thought, you know what, I'm going to write a book? God damn it! I know you said that it was just meant to be some scribbles at the beginning, and you never thought it would be like a blockbuster or something. But how did you get your ideas? Choose the title, the topic. What or who inspired you?
Yeah,
Just how was that journey for you?
I can bite on that. So I think I've always envisioned having enough interesting life experiences to warrant a book. Okay. I always do it as like a not now thing. Like I lived in Sweden for a year. I got some really cool stories. I had a website where I blogged pictures and stories. This is back in '98. So, websites were a thing, like a really big headline. And that's cool, you know? But you know, I never thought that I had enough to make a world changing book. I mean, the usual pictures of statues and castles and government buildings and all the fountains and all the usual, you know, town cosmopolitan pictures that the average tourist gets. I mean, I think everybody's written all those books, all the Lonely Planet books you could ever want. I think they're kind of a dime of a dozen. They're all sort of the same, different. But I wanted to do something that got a little bit under the skin of the world. It gets you into the real world. I mean, I've been to China 17 times, but I've never been to any of the tourist things. I've never been to the Terracotta Soldiers. I've never been to the Great Wall. I've always been in like really industrial areas, like really terrible suburbs of places like Beijing, Shenzhen, Hangzhou, uh, Shanghai, just some really terrible places where everything that's
Wuhan? No.
sorry.
Wuhan?
No, I
No,
didn't
just
work in
kidding.
Wuhan. I never worked there, but I'm always working in the engine room of the planet, like places that are less desirable, the industrial areas. So, um, what was the question?
Yeah,
Give me
no,
back.
we're just talking about sort of how you got to writing a book, like,
Yeah.
and the
So, okay, right. Thank you. So I've been taking
inspiration.
pictures. I take like thousands of pictures everywhere I go. It's not uncommon for me to take 1,000 pictures in every country I go to. And I've always done that because things happen too fast for you to process right then. But if you take pictures of everything you're seeing as it's happening, then I don't process it. I just process it later. They go to the next thing. So I'm constantly taking pictures,
Hmm.
processing. So I just
Hmm.
load up as many pictures as I can. And then the ones that strike me as interesting, I write some notes in that folder. Like say I go to Uruguay for the day. Okay, I got a Uruguay folder.
Hmm.
I've got a link to the music that I listened to when I was there. And, some notes of what I saw there, what was poignant, what was interesting, whatever. So I've gone through like 128 countries worth of pictures. And I figured, well, I plucked out some of the most interesting stories that came to mind that highlight and complement with some of the points that I'm trying to make. I mean, probably the hardest part about becoming an author is you have to go from nobody to somebody that people believe and trust. And it's a really fine line to walk between coming off as an egotistic, know-it-all and somebody that just simply has done all the work and all the research that deserves and entitles them to the honors of saying that they're expert of their subject. I mean, to me, the definition of an expert is somebody has made every possible mistake in their line of work. So I've made a lot of mistakes in writing this book, and I always get back up, dust myself off, and sometimes certain lines are too technical. Friends have told me, dude, people aren't going to get that, so I'd cut it out. So it's taking feedback. It's knowing what you know, knowing what you don't know, and knowing enough to know the difference, and towing that fine line between what's coming off puffy and what's just showing raw intellect of what you've earned, something you've worked for. That's what it comes down to.
Are
I don't care
you,
on me
are
because I'm
you,
good at what I do. That's your problem. That ain't my problem. I'm the guy that
yeah,
did. You don't like my book, go get somebody else's book. You don't like the fact on page 78, go to source 281, go talk to those people. Horses and water troughs come to mind. I'm just a purveyor of high quality information. If it's not high enough quality for you, I'm sorry. Don't rate my book a 5-star. Rate it 4. Tell me how much you hated that fact, how much it hurt your feelings. I don't care. I'm just here to put out an awesome book and have a good time. There's going to be mistakes in there, and I'm going to leave them in there too. Because 99.3% perfect is good enough for me. It's good enough for nuclear power. It's going to be good enough for you too.
It's really interesting that you say that, because, you know, we're living this life of synchronicity, and
it's important.
Yeah, it's a really strong point.
Don Jones.
It reminds me of this video I watched this morning of, you know, actor Russell Brand, who's actually quite enlightened, and he's written his own
He's
book.
Aussie, right?
No, Russell Brand, he's from the UK. And
Russell Crowe, I'm thinking maybe.
Russell Brand, you know, he's well known for comedies and stuff. You'll know him. And anyway,
I don't have a TV, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's all good. He interviewed a well-known author named Elizabeth Gilbert, who wrote Eat, Pray, Love, and Big Magic. Anyway,
okay.
And she mentioned that some people were critiquing her for some character being a bit of a poor character in her book. And instead of, it reminded me of what you said just now, because instead of just like going into her ego and totally getting crazed about that she made a mistake and how bad she was, and you know, and feeling like a failure, and you know, she thought, oh well, that's what you think. I'm done with that book now. I've got other things that are coming to me. And it reminds me of you in the way that, you know, you're not just one-dimensional. This is just, I mean, this book is far from one-dimensional. You know, it's multifarious. And you've just opened up a diamond in the rough, right? And now from here, it sparks off all these other things. And, you know,
it's an information hologram, Crystal.
Completely. And the people that concentrate on nagging or critiquing, you know, they're just stuck on that.
You're missing the point. You're not seeing the forest for the trees. All you see is tree bark because you're too close to the trees. Step back for a minute.
You see the wood for the trees, and you live in a forest, actually. So, you know, you really do. So, you know,
trees teach you a lot.
Absolutely. And, you know, they speak, and which is really interesting, because in this Russell Brand interview, he did talk about that, what they call the animist perspective, which is just that there's energy in everything. There's energy, you know, there's a spirit in a tree, there's a spirit in ideas, creativity, and it then forms its own consciousness.
Let me pause you.
Yeah.
Let me pause you though. Like take for example the acacia tree. It has dimethyltryptamine in its roots at 7% concentrations. I mean, it's the same chemical that makes you and I conscious. Dimethyltryptamine, DMT. Your body has it. I have it. Has it. Why is that a Schedule 1 illegal psychedelic drug in terms of our country? Why is that classified?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's classified. If it grows in tree roots.
Yeah, the ancients
we know more about this.
Yeah, and then you think of the word acacia, it would have some kind of etymological background.
Yeah,
I'm sure we could look into that.
Genesis 3:22. Watch this. Genesis 3:22 is the verse that talks about the tree of life, the knowledge of good and evil. That's the tree of life. Genesis 3:22. I'm not kidding you. Look it up. You. Yeah.
I know this because before we met online, I was just feeling all these synchronicities to do with Genesis, and
okay, really.
And then when I started to read your book, something just, nothing that you said directly, but I just knew there was something more to be explored there. So, and that there was some truth in it. There was something magical about that. So I completely understand. Sometimes we can understand without understanding, but we know there's something more, but it will evolve.
There's a knowingness about it, right?
Absolutely. And it's in our genes.
I get it.
You know, Genesis, genes, I
well,
mean, it's in our genes.
It's in our genes too, because if you look at the picture later in the book, like chapter 13 or 14, if you look at the family portrait of all your 23 chromosomes, they all look like a little pairs of pants that look like 11s with a short little legs come out the top of the waist and longer legs come out the bottom of the waist. They're little 11s. Our entire portrait of chromosomes under a microscope.
Like jellyfish? Yeah, and 23 is like 32 backwards, so, you know, yeah.
Right. And 223, February 23rd was my parents' wedding anniversary, and I was born on the reverse of that, 322. I mean, these metaphors, and my parents were both, two of them were 23 when they met and got married. Think about that.
I got goosebumps, and like there's something in this. How many
You can't make this stuff up because it wouldn't be as cool as this.
This is your personal version of it, and it's shaped who you are today, right?
You don't have to make this stuff up. There's for me to document the stuff that it's doing on its own. Why would I make more? I can document what now.
There's so many people that experience their versions of it, even like, you know, a grandmother dies and then the new baby's born on that date, or so many people have experiences like that. And I know as my work, when I'm doing mediumship, connecting with those who have passed, they often bring through numbers or dates as part of their messages, and for the person that they know what that means, or there's a connection between people's birthday dates and so on. Like, for example, my birthday is April 8th and my daughter is October 8th, and it's exactly 6 months between, and you know, you just know there's something in it. So from this point, okay, so we've talked about sort of, you know, how you got to writing this book and so on. I'm really curious, how long did it take you to write this book? Were you like scratching your head? Were you like a mad scientist, you know, that need to be in some cave? You know, like how did that look for you?
It was pretty ugly. I mean, it was pretty ugly. I got this in a dream while I was working down in Florida on the biggest project of my life. I was working on a 1.6 gigawatt power plant, the $2 billion job, installing 6 new power units down in Crystal River, Florida. And we were working 60-hour weeks, and I bought a house down there temporarily for a year. And I brought my family down, moved my son down there. We got him in school and everything, all the bills and everything, insurance, everything set up. But we were building a brand new plant that was taking up all my time. But I was so tired by the end of that job. By the middle of that job, I was like, I don't ever want to have to work this hard again. I was in charge of, there was 3,300 people on the project. I was the lead electrical engineer. And I was the 4th guy on the job. The first 3 guys in my position couldn't handle it. The job was 8 months behind schedule when I got there. It was 5 months behind when I left. So I like to take credit that we choked up on the schedule for 3 months. But it was a very tough job. And I started writing on April 22nd of 2018. And I continued to write throughout that process. I mean, I get home from work at 5 p.m. I'd have dinner with the family, get a shower, hang out for about half an hour, and then I'd go and hide in the closet and write, get on my computer and work for the next 4 hours, stay up till 1 o'clock in the morning. Alarm would go off at 5 a.m., time to go to work. I'd sleep for 4 hours, and just at work and at break time, lunchtime, if I had any chance, if I didn't have anything to do, I'd start hammering on the book a little bit here and there if I had any spare time, which wasn't much, but it just wasn't a wasted minute. I lost a lot of sleep and been in the ER 3 times just from stress breakdowns, thinking I was going to have a heart attack.
Mm-hmm. I can understand that.
I wrote the last 3 chapters as if I was writing my last will and testament. I thought there was a high potential of dying, because I went and saw a cardiologist thinking I had some kind of a heart defect, but I was healthy as a horse. I was just completely stressed out. But this was a Herculean task. I'm so glad it's behind me, and I'm just glad to be just working on getting it into a higher orbit. And I want to be able to just walk away from it and get some space from it and just see what it does, you know?
Yeah, that's the key, because, you know, it's very intense to not only to write, but to carry this weight on your shoulders. And you took it upon yourself. And, you know, it reminds me of that saying that God only gives you the cross that you can bear. Yeah. And now it makes sense having the Jesus cross beside me, which I just popped on before we joined up here. And
I appreciate that.
Really is true. You have buried that cross on your back.
It's been hard.
You know,
it's been so hard.
You know, and now, you know, and you've, as you said, a Herculean task. Now you're at that point where you can just let it all go and just collapse, yeah. Right?
I'm so over it.
Yeah, and I get that, I really do. But what, you know, and so spend time on you and take care of you. I'm just wondering too, how did you feel after your book was finally launched?
I always wondered what it, like Neil Armstrong felt like when he touched his foot on the moon for the first time. I think it would be in the same order of magnitude. I think it's, you know, if we say first man on the moon is 100, I would say this is probably a solid 90 to 91% of what those guys must have felt. I'd
91%.
say 91.
Yeah.
91%. I give it a 91%. If first man on the moon's 100, it's for me. It gave me would have wanted if I was an astronaut.
You know, both numbers add to 100 and 91. I'm not surprised. You know, you're humble, but you know, in a way that your version is just as mammoth. It's just a microcosm of that macrocosm. And you know, they say that it was one giant leap for mankind to go on the
Yeah.
moon, and you've taken a giant leap through this book, through the doorways of the 1111. You know, and
people think I'm kind of a hard ass or whatever. People think I'm tough to talk to. I'm really not. But it's when people challenge me, they're not expecting to be plowed into the ground. They're not expecting to be faced with facts. They want to argue feelings, and I don't do feelings. I'll return facts to you, or I won't have the argument. I don't argue based on feelings. So, you know, people want to debate this material. I've got facts to back it up. That book stands on its own two legs. It's self-defended. Every Lao Tzu, The Art of War, is every war is won before it's fought. That book it'll stand on its own legs. I don't need to defend it. I have 737 sources to back up any claim I have. So I'm not too worried about it.
Yeah, I've seen that you have a lot of references in your book, and you do.
If that's not trying hard enough, I'm sorry.
Yeah, look, just don't worry about all that. That's going to happen for anybody who goes out there on a platform of whatever kind. It takes courage and it takes perseverance. And, you know, you just have to reach a point where, you know, there's always going to be the critics, but you just got to keep going, right? Onwards and upwards.
You know what I did? I'll tell you what, I had somebody try to get smart with me up on Instagram saying, oh, I think I smell a tin hat. I said, you know what, buddy? I posted a picture of my hard hat in front of a 1,000 megawatt nuclear power plant. I said, that hat on my head is made out of fiberglass. Excuse me. I work on nuclear power. He got quiet, and he actually apologized. He actually hit me back. And I offered to give him a free book. I said, dude, I'll send you a free book. You can do what you want with it. If you don't like it, I don't care what you do with it, dude. I just want you to get the information. I've made my money, dude. I'm not in this for the fame or fortune. I just want to get a really cool message out there. It's
absolutely.
Why would I give out $5,000 worth of books? I would have sent all my friends on Facebook, hey, come buy my book. No, I sent them all one. I said, who wants a copy? Send them a copy. And if you like it, go recommend it to 6 people. Then I'll sell 6 copies. But if it's garbage, I don't want it to forward. It'll live or die by its own merits. I'm not looking for any favors, people. I've did the hard work.
I can definitely advocate for that. I know that you are a generous soul, and there's nothing to defend yourself about. Just be who you are, and you know, and it is.
I'm just having fun.
Absolutely, and that's what it's about. A lot of people are not doing that, and they're missing the point, right? So, you know, I'd like, you know, what would be your sort of? I know that when you wrote this book, you know, having launched it, what would be the overall message that you would want to leave behind about it? You know,
it's pretty simple. It's pretty simple for me. I mean, considering you started out, I mean, everything about you is encoded in your DNA, which is like, there's 37 trillion copies of your DNA. Thanks, man. There's 37 trillion copies of your DNA, which is your entire recipe for what to make you. It's like, one of the last sentences I put in that book is like, everything you just read takes up the space of, I forget what the data size, but it's like, I don't know, 29 megabytes, whatever it is. I said that works out to exactly, you would have to read to understand, to read your entire DNA code structure, to read your entire genome that's in every single one of your 37 trillion cells. You would have to read the equivalent of this book. I think the number is 891 times in order to read. So everything you've just read, while you think that, wow, what a massive book, what a crazy complicated book that just hurt my brain. Well, you need to read 889 more times in order to read your entire DNA sequence. I mean, that's just how big 3.5 gigabytes worth of data in DNA is. And to have that in microscopic form at the atomic level of a technology that was potentially designed billions, if not, you know, tens of billions of years ago by this ancient creator that gave us the ability to come from dust and end with dust, but have these emotions and feelings, experiences, memories, epiphanies, pain, suffering, happiness, all these things that happen, the ability to see and comprehend a hologram, a 3D movie, to have a MRI machine, things that can slice us digitally with electromagnetic, with invisible energy that we have to use imaginary numbers to imaginary power, reactive power, complex power. The math that goes into those kind of things would blow the average person's mind. Imaginary power, imaginary. Think about that. We have to work with it. You have to understand it. You have to work with real power, imaginary, and then the combination of the two is complex power. It's mind-blowing that it works that way. It's not like we made it that way. The math people didn't say, well, let's make this hard. This is the way God left the universe for us to discover. We simply documented how it's put together, and it's that complicated. It's that intricate. It's that unbelievably symmetric. It couldn't have happened by accident. It's impossible. The
Yeah,
cosmic
and
Circuit by Jeremy Narby is mind-blowing. He's an atheist, and he goes into how it's impossible that it can be by random. Think about that. PhD from Stanford.
that's what you really explore is
Great
the
book.
symmetry.
Cosmic Serpent, Jeremy Narby. Get that book.
Mm-hmm.
Before you read
Yeah.
mine, I don't care. Read his book first. That's how good it is. I don't care about my book. Read his book. He might actually teach you something.
Yeah, because I think with you, it's about getting the message out there, and and sending people on a pathway of thought. Because with you, just knowing you and also reading your book, it just sends you on all these pathways. It's the tree of life. Your book, it's not linear by any means. It's complex.
It's parallel. I think people want to know when they pick a book. Oh, is it? I'm gonna do nonfiction. Let me go right brain. Oh no, today I'm feeling some left brain. Let's go fiction. I'm not making you fiction. I'm not making you choose. I'm forcing you to walk both sides of that street, because every sentence is an exercise in both sides of your cranium. You need to understand the emotional content, because I'm going to back it up with some numerology. I'm going to show you what the prime factorization of 1111 comes out to, or 666. If you divide it by 18, you get 37. Well, 18 is 6 plus 6 plus 6. 666 divided by 6 plus 6 plus 6 gives you a star number 37. What's up with that? Like, why does that come out to a star number?
And that number, the DNA number, and you've mentioned 37 several times. So yeah, I can.
Yeah, 37 is a super huge number. It's underrepresented in numerology. People just say, well, it's a star. That's the end of it. They don't look 111 and realize that it's 3 times 37. People don't realize that all these cycles of human activity, they correlate very closely to the solar activity cycle, which peaks every 11 years, and every other 11 years, the 20, like 11's like a small solar activity peak, and then 22 is a bigger peak, and then 33 years later is a smaller peak. It oscillates. There's a 22-year oscillation on top of the 11-year oscillation of solar activity. And so it's this star blazing away, 92.7 million miles away, blazing off this long wave-like signal, 11, 11, 11, as it energy out at the speed of light, which is 11 minutes 11 seconds, comes out to 671 seconds. 671 million miles an hour, the speed of light, is the speed that is coming from that nuclear furnace to your house. Takes exactly 500 seconds to get from our nearest star to the home planet. And that's some crazy coolness. It's not 501 seconds. It's not 498. It's 500 seconds. It's 8 minutes and 20 seconds. I kind of wished it was 8:22, but I'll take it. I'll take it even 5.
Yeah.
Somebody put this all in motion. Somebody really intelligent thought about all this stuff and put it in motion.
100%. There's no accident.
Mind-shattering.
And that's why that comes back to synchronicity, because synchronicity is not a coincidence that's accidental. It is just, there's something synchronistic and connected. And
I see what you did there. That was cool.
Yeah. And so with 1111, it's one example of synchronicity. But for me, that word synchronicity, sink in, you're like sinking in to a higher truth, to all that is. And then it is. And I think 1111 offers that through its language that is universal, that is higher, that is, it's not necessarily a language you speak. One way of entering it is through numbers, but everything interconnects, because as you would have discovered, numbers are really a part of the creation of our world and the universe.
Yeah, I got a good one for you.
Yeah, I knew you would.
I got a really good one for you that just came to. I've never thought about this before, but it just occurred to me right here in real time.
Love it.
Power generators that I work on, when you fire up one of these big units to connect it into the power grid, before you close that switch, it's kind of like, imagine you're pushing a child on a swing, and you wait for the child to come up just to the right time to push. Yes. There's a right time to push, and there's also a very wrong time to push. When the kid's coming at you, that's not when you're pushing. You wait till made it cycle. There's a specific one perfect time when you can impart energy to that system and not hurt yourself or hurt the target. And there's the same process when you've got waves of electrical energy coming out of a generator. You've got waves of electrical energy waiting to connect with you from other power stations on the other side of that switch. When you close it, you better hope that you're at the same cycle. Otherwise, you're going to buck. If the system's up when you're trying to close in down, it's going to buck, and the generator's going to suffer, or you're going to blow a power transformer. Something bad's going to happen if you synchronize out of phase. So it's electric power is all about synchronicity. We have a synchronoscope that shows if it's like a clock needle that goes around. If the generator's turbine's going faster than the system's rotational, it'll show you that it's going too fast. So you'll back off on the fuel, slow down the turbine a little bit, just bit by bit until that needle just sits right there at the top, and that tells you that it's ready to close. You're at the same phase, same voltage, same speed. Now you can grab it. You're both on two swings now. You're swinging together. You got the grid and you're swinging together.
You're in sync.
To grab hands when you're at the same place. If you try to grab hands when I'm going this way and you're going that way, our hands are going to rip.
And that's sort of the metaphor. Yeah, it's a metaphor of being in sync with the universe, with the rhythm, with the flow, and that's where
with the rest of the power grid, with every other machine in the system. So yeah, electricity has some interesting metaphors to life, and there's spiritual consequences to it too.
Absolutely, because it reminds me of the universal laws and the idea of the pendulum swing. And it very much is true. It's like a spectrum, but it's all in balance when it goes from one side to the other.
Struth. You guys say struth, right? That's Australian for it's truth, right?
Yeah.
Struth.
Yeah, we do. Okay.
One of the funniest things an Aussie ever said to me was Guy Morgan in Perth. I worked with him. I worked with him throughout the world. Guy Morgan. He told me when we were in generator specialist class in Schenectady, New York at GE back in 2003, he said to me, he says, "Oh, Charlie, well, pound your face in dough and make biscuits." It's kind of an insult of how to say that I had the face of a monkey. That if you press my face in dough and you could make gorilla biscuits with the mold, kind of.
That's right. Yeah.
It took me a while to unpack that, but they had a really funny sense of humor.
Absolutely. Yeah. Aussies are great like that. Aussies are funny. They're great.
These are the pearls that this is why I love traveling, is like getting funny sayings from people around the world and just remembering the funniest word from each country, you know?
Yeah, I've got another one, but I think I'll email that one to you.
Yeah, no worries. Carry on.
Okay, so just, look, what is your, we'll talk about, we're just going to wrap up. So I'd like you to sort of say, what are your final words? What's your message you'd like to leave with everyone? And then share about your contact details, your website, your Facebook page, how to get the book, how can people contact you, that kind of thing.
Well, let's see. Best piece of advice I've gotten, I'll pass along to everybody else. The best piece of advice I've gotten is from a guy, Latswa, Champ Rinya. I hope you're watching this, brother. He's a Buddhist monk in Thailand. Him and yourself are the two most important people I've met this year. You guys are just complete angels without wings. You guys are awesome. I'm going to pinch each of you just to see if you're human, to squeal if I ever meet you in the flesh, because you guys are just completely awesome. But Champ Rinya, where was I going with that? I'm sorry.
I think you had like a quote or a saying or something that, you wanted to share, or something you've learned or something like that. I mean, your mind is like powerful. Yeah,
I'm a little bit, I'm kind of getting tired.
Yeah, no, it's all good. We're going to wrap up now, but
what would I take? What would I say?
Final word or message or...
final word. Oh, I know. Champ, I know where I was. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. I've caught.
Oh, good.
Champ Rinya said to check into QHAT. So I spoke to QHT practitioner. The thing about the mantra of practice talking to your higher self. Say, I have a clear and direct communication with my higher self. It's been really interesting to see how my clarity, my mental clarity has gone up dramatically. I've only been saying it, 20 times a day for the last 2 days, but it's really interesting. It's opening up my mind. So I'm curious to see where this goes. But, as you read the book, just keep an open mind. You may not agree with every little fact, but I may lose the battle, but I've won this war. I've won this war to prove that 1111 is a code of awakening. It's a code of enlightenment. It's a code of energy. It's a code of everything that underpins what we are, who we are, where we're going, how we got here. There's many mysteries weaved into it, and you'll see what I'm talking about, even the front and back covers of that book.
Absolutely.
I think for a treat.
Yeah, it's intriguing. I mean, I've written an article about it. So I'm going to pop down under this video all the links to your 1111 code website.
www.1111code.com. No dots, spaces, hyphens, or cute stuff. Just 1111code.com. Simple as that.
Perfect.
Everything else is there. There's a link to buy the book on there on Amazon. Click if you want a signed copy. This might be opening a can of worms, but
maybe just zip that one.
I've got an address on the website where if you want a signed copy by the author, I've got about 100 boxes that if I get, I'll sign the first, I'll hand sign the first 100 people that email me and say they want a copy, and they'll send me $30 to the post office box on the website. I'll respond with a copy of my book signed by me. And
that's awesome. That's awesome.
Super happy to do it.
Yeah, and I know that if they go to that website, there's a link to your Amazon site with the book, and I know that you can also receive it as an ebook if that suits some people as well.
Yeah.
What is your Facebook page?
Facebook. I don't.
The 1111 code, is that it?
Let me get back to you on that. I don't actively monitor that stuff. I don't look at it. I know I think I'm the period 11 period. No, the dot 1111 code. I don't know.
You know what? Don't worry about it. I'll write it under this video. So all those
I'll get it to you in email.
Under the video. All right.
I'll email it to you.
We're both exhausted, I think, by now. So thank you, Charlie. Thank you so much for sharing so candidly and deeply and extravagantly your thought processes and how you got to write this book and your incredible journey. So, you know, it's been fantastic. So I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. And thanks everyone else, for listening. So check out the links under the video. Check out Charlie's book. It's really awesome. I mean, you know, and there's more videos to come of this. I'll be speaking with Charlie again down the track, and we're going to dive really deep into the book and get into the nitty gritty. And, you know, it's going to be awesome. So, you know, thanks a lot. And I look forward to speaking to you again soon, Charlie.
You know, I want to say one final note. One of the advantages of the Kindle is that it's in color. So maybe about a quarter of the pictures inside of the book are going to have some color in them. But if you get the print book, it's not going to have, you're going to have all black and white inside. That's number one. And number 1B, reason 1B is that the postal system has been exceptionally slow. If you get it on the Kindle, you're going to get it right away and you're going to get it in color. So if you're a Kindle person, get the Kindle. You know, if you love it, buy the paperback and just have it as a keepsake, whatever. But so
good point. Absolutely.
And leave me a review on Amazon. People don't realize that authors live or die by their reviews. Like how you rank is based on user reviews. So that stuff is super huge.
Yeah, that's really true. And I know some of my viewers.
It's been a super honor. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say some of my viewers have already bought your book. So I'm just going to encourage everyone. And if you haven't already, just like if you can give Charlie a glowing review on his Amazon book page, that would be fantastic.
Love you guys.
Yeah, and so, all right. Thank you so much. And see you, Charlie. See you real soon. Bye.